Okay. Draw for turn, and I'll play Commander Sphere. Here we go. And Dragon Master Outcast. Alright, and I'll attack you with Salumgar the Drifting Death for 3. And I think that's probably the end of my turn. You're up.
Alright. At the beginning of Karazikar, the Eye Tyrant's turn, he will turn and face Salumgar the Drifting Death, and he shall cackle out, "Ha ha ha! You fell right into my trap." And then Karazikar will turn, and using its Eye Beam ability, I'm gonna pray the dice gods here. Alright, and that is the Disintegration Beam, so I'll target Salumgar with that. And Salumgar shall fall to the might of the Eye Tyrant.
What are you doing?
What do you mean?
You're playing Dungeons and Dragons. I thought we were playing Magic the Gathering with our Dungeons and Dragons decks.
I thought we were playing Dungeons and Dragons with our Magic the Gathering decks.
Oh boy, well either way I'm winning.
I wouldn't be so sure. After all, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. Or should I say, eyes of the beholder. Welcome on back to Fasciano Productions. I am Bobby Fasciano, and welcome to another video, the second part of my deck techs series for Magic the Gathering Commander. And today, as you saw in the intro, we have Karazikar, the Eye Tyrant. This is one of the new D&D legends from last year's D&D Adventures in the Forgotten Realms set. A quick rundown of what it does. It's very foily and is a beholder, one of my favorite D&D monsters. A 5-mana 5/5 Rakdos colors, legendary creature beholder, and whenever you attack a player, you get to tap a target creature that player controls and goad it. And a goaded creature has to attack one of your other opponents on its turn. And whenever an opponent attacks one of your opponents, doesn't have to be goaded, but can be, you and the attacking player each draw a card and lose 1 life. This is a pretty good effect and can get really churning through your cards and your deck and finding those pieces you need to win. But before we win, let's start off with some other ways to goad things. This is a crazy synergy deck, and let's see some of the first parts of this Eye Tyrant's mad machine. Starting us off here, we have Carter Doomscourge. This is kind of an alternate commander, but here we don't really use it, but people use it as the goad commander a lot. It doesn't actually say goad, but essentially has that text on enters the battlefield. It goads everything. Pretty powerful effect. Just like Disrupt Decorum has that same ability. Dinner and politics do not mix. Politics really doesn't mix with anything. Take it from a upcoming politics major. And whenever an attacking creature dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So kind of an aristocrat's build, but here it's just used as an ETB goad. Landfall goad is Geodrager, which is pretty good with Evolving Wilds and like effects, and is a 4/3 first strike, which is pretty helpful as well, getting in for that attack so you can goad something with Karazkar's first ability. 6 mana is a lot, but usually worth it, goading a whole force. Vengeful Ancestor starts pinging people. Now, Karazikar already does 1 damage to the player whenever they attack with a creature, another one of your opponents. So this starts to do more and more, and we're going to have a lot of pingers in this deck. Start draining their life slowly but surely, and it is a Spirit Dragon, enters and goads, or when it attacks it goads. Pretty good at getting in, and this will goad something, Karazikar will goad something. Pretty splendid. Agitator Ant, if you have played Commander, you know what this one does. Anybody can put 2 counters, however, they get to goad something this way. and you get a free 2 counters because you can run something, and it isn't really goaded because it goes away at the beginning of your next turn. Besmirch is a nice effect from the original Goad set, Conspiracy. I believe that is where Goad originated from, and allows you to active freeze in something, and then Goad it. Nice effect there. Goblin Diplomats has horrifically rude art. Sorry for those horrible goblins, apparently. Some of the ones who don't mix well with politics. And this taps to make creatures attack. Not exactly goading, but there's this next one. Just kind of egging people on, giving opponents' creatures haste and your creatures haste, as long as they're attacking your opponents. This is a very political heavy deck. I made jokes about it in the last 30 seconds, but you have to use all of your political skills to, try and manipulate your friends to attack one another and slowly drain their life totals. But we can, of course, encourage that with the Vow Cycle, the Impetus Cycle, and Bloodthirsty Blade, all enchantments or artifacts which either stop something from attacking you or goad it forever and give you some pretty nice rewards from it. Funny enough, there are 2 black vows because the original says Intimidate, which they obviously didn't want to reprint in Commander Legends with that lovely Tevish flavor text. What a nice guy. So we've goaded things, but as I noted, Karazikar's first ability lets you, whenever you attack a player, you get to goad one of their things and also tap it. So we need things that kind of get in under the radar and can goad things through that ability. And here we have Plague Beetle, absolute all-star, and combos with the Urborg. That is, of course, in this lovely deck. Tormented Soul and Changing Outcast essentially do the same thing, just unblockable 1/1s, trying to get in. Loyal Apprentice can create just an obscene amount of tokens, one every turn, that just goes in, goads something for each player. Vampire Nighthawk actually works out pretty well in this deck. No one really wants to block the Flying Death Touch, and also the lifelink will gain back some of the life that you're losing from Karazikar as well. Hunted Nightmare and Hunted Dragon both give your opponents things, which you can use for some political deals, but also leave you with giant undercosted threats like this 5 mana 6/6 Flying and Haste, and this 3 mana 4/5 with Menace. And finally, we got Clackbridge Troll, which will give someone some goats you can goad, and then force some things to be either sacrificed, or you'll get a few more cards and a few more life. Or just a big 8/8 tramply hasty creature who comes swinging in, goading something, and dealing a lot of damage with it. Now, I said this was a big synergy deck. We've covered the goad half. We've covered the creatures that can get in half. And that's really the first half of this ability. But what about the second? Let's punish our opponents for drawing cards. First off, we got Humble Defector, who can forget this wonderful political deal maker of a card being traded back and forth. One time I drew probably 8 cards in the game off this and crushed. Really helps you out. And if it ever becomes pesky, you can force it to be goaded and either attack in and die, or force them to tap it and draw 2 cards and hopefully take some amount of damage from cards coming up. But first we got Psychosis Crawler, which whenever you draw a card, which of course Karazikar also says you draw a card, each opponent will lose 1 life. And this thing's power and toughness are usually equal to 7, because you'll most of the time have 7 cards in hand from drawing everything, if not more. Spiteful Visions gives everyone an additional card, however, also does damage to them. This can easily deal 10 damage to each player over the course of a game, really speeding things up in your favor. Once this comes out, if players can't destroy you or bring you down soon, you're really going to run away with the game. Stormfist Crusader, another one of those effects that draws cards and has them lose a life. Unfortunately, it doesn't say for every card, and it's only on your turn, but it is still pretty good. And with a 2/2 with Menace, it actually does help with Karazikar's first ability. Curse of Fool's Wisdom. I've actually cast this for its madness cost one time because I'd just so many cards in hand. And it is quite good at getting you life, getting some of the life back. You'll lose from Karazikar whenever they draw cards. Fate Unraveler, another effect that deals damage when they draw cards. Sangromancer is the opposite, discarding, which will be a plenty when your opponents draw so many cards a turn. Stormdeath Dragon, the background of my computer, this lovely Slavomir Maniac art, and that flying, that haste, a little bit of protection, and also the ability to do damage equal to the number of cards in players' hands. And also finishing it off with a Damnable Pact, which can either be used to cast on yourself, gain you a little bit of cards, or more often on an opponent to finish them, acting as a strange kind of fireball in this match. Of course, all this incidental damage and goading is going to keep players' life totals really low, but we still need finishers to end the game once and for all in our favor. After all, Beholders are crazy, and they always have backup plans for the backup plans. So here are some of ours, and of course, if we have a bunch of creatures, and when they attack, they can tap something down, and they're all kind of, unblockable and flying and have menace and all that, why don't we give them a Vorpal Sword and go for the head? I love the Vorpal Sword in D&D, and in Magic it does not disappoint, acting as a Phage, which is also in the deck, just traded for this one. So thrilled that I finally got my hands on one of them, and it's going to go great with Vorpal Sword in this deck, just immediately cutting someone's head off and eliminating them from the game is going to be absolutely wonderful. Finally, or next, as a way to kind of gain more life, but also continue on with the pinging theme we have, a Pontiff of Blight is going to give all your cries Extort, which just here lets you pay a swamp. Of course, that's in reminder text, oddly enough, so it doesn't actually count as a Orzhov card for color identity purposes. Sorry. Yeah, this one can do a lot of damage and is really, really hard to get through at a 2/7. Mob Rule is the next one that just allows you to finish off the game right on the spot, steal a lot of things, goad the rest, tap it down, and you will have a wonderful, wonderful combat that will probably end the game right then and there. Keep in mind, you're going to be drawing so many cards off of Karazikar and other effects that you're going to get your hands on one of these sooner or later, and you're going to cut someone's head off with Phage or Vorpal Sword, and you're going to gain so much life through Pontiff of Blight, and then you're going to take everyone's creatures through Mob Rule. But you might as well have a Bolas' Citadel, just in case. And if you're going to run Bolas' Citadel, you may as well run Grey Merchant. And all of this comes together to be a wonderful kind of cacophony of horror for your opponents as you spiral out of control with all of your card advantage and now all of your threats. And if you can't find one of those 6 cards to kind of finish it off, well, you can use Varagoth and Demonic Tutor to do so. Demonic Tutor had lying around from my Dual Decks Anthology that I got a few years ago for Christmas as a kid, and Cothraped there being all evil and giving you a card to boot at sorcery speed, and then Varagoth, which honestly in this deck, because we can tap things down and we really control the combat step, Death Touch is a great effect, but you can usually get this in 2 or even 3 times and start activating the ability and really go off if you haven't already. So yeah, those are ways to finish everything. But here are some other areas of kind of secret tech for a Karazikar deck. Alright, here's some weird synergy pieces that didn't really have a firm category to go in. Let's start with protecting our commander with Swiftfoot Boots. The haste is good, but giving it hexproof is going to stop any removal. Of course, Karazikar is dealing a lot of damage with the -1 and with the Goad, so people are going to want him off the board, and he goes to 7 and then to 9 mana with commander attacks, and you're not going to want that. You're just going to want to put some Swiftfoot Boots on him. How a Beholder wears boots, I could not tell you, but, you know, life finds a way. Emerald Captain and Court of Ire are our Monarch suite. I'd love to have some more cards, and originally I did, and I'd also love to have some initiative cards that were just released from the new D&D set that'll hopefully put some references in here too. But this one really synergizes, dealing damage equal to the number of cards in their hand, which of course is going to be a lot, and disincentivizes people from attacking you. And then Court of Ire is going to be able to remove some stuff and deal 7 damage, which is a whole lot when everyone's getting pinged over and over again by Karazikar. Obnixilis, or Bob Nixilis, as people sometimes tend to call him, has you drawing cards, but also being able to remove creatures, and if you have ultimate, just probably killing someone, because, of course, you'll draw so many cards with them. Chaos Warp, good red staple of removal. Not a lot of removal in this deck, but, of course, because we're goading things, we kind of want to come up with the board a bit, because combat's going to happen, and we benefit off of creatures, you know, swinging in at our opponents, but sometimes we'll have to get rid of a messy permanent, and hopefully, if an opponent gets something else off of this, they'll use it to hurt another one of our opponents instead of us. Snuff Out, though, is in here, again from the Dual Decks Anthology, to stop any creatures who happen to come our way pretty much free, and if you draw it off of Karazikar, it is pretty good. We do have a slight life gain sub-theme in this deck, just because we don't want to die of our own commander's ability, so that 4 life is almost nothing. Obnixilis functions as another pinger whenever opponents draw cards, and also as a destroyer, and gets them 2 cards in addition. So good for political deals, but also good just for pinging them and such. Alhammer's Archive, didn't know where to put this, but gets you multiple cards, which will just be incredibly helpful with Karazikar. This can get you just an absolutely absurd number of cards. Let's say you have 4 opponents and each of them attack 2 other of their opponents. This is like best case scenario, Magical Christmas Land. But let's say a full go round, normally you draw 6 cards. Here you'd be drawing 12, which is just absolutely crazy. Fable of the Mirror Breaker, trying it out in here. I think there are some fun shenanigans you can do with this card. A whole lot of text on it. I won't really read it because the main thing on the back is you want to create copies. It acts as kind of a kiki-jiki. It's not perfect, but I think that there's something you can do with it. And I'm trying it out just to see if it can act as another finisher. Of course, always experimenting with this deck because I love it and I love the political aspect of it so much, as I'll get into later. And here we got another one that I'm experimenting with. Tamio's adopted kid, Nashi, who, because we have so many unblockable guys, their ninjutsu ability will often trigger, and we'll get some more card advantage from that bottom cost. And yeah, this is a pretty good suite of some strange pieces that interact with Karazikar in a pretty neat way. But we have so many cards at this point. We've drawn a ton. We are dealing a ton of damage. How are we going to pay for all of this? Let's go into the mana ramp. Now, I play green a lot, but in this deck, it is so mana intensive because you draw so many cards that I think I run more ramp in this deck than almost any other. So let's start going through it, chugging away. We got a ton of 2 mana rocks here, 6 of them. We got Ebony Fly, which in a pinch will help you attack in and get that goad from Karazikar. Arachnus Signet, an Arcane Signet, Felwar Stone, Talisman of Indulgence, and a Mind Stone. All help you. If you can get any one of these, and maybe another ramp, you can cast Karazikar, maybe turn, you know, if you get the dream and get a soul ring out, you can cast him probably turn 3, which at that point, you're going to be starting from such a high spot, and it's going to be hard to bring you down. That's why fast mana is so important in this deck. Not that competitive fast mana, but, you know, I like having some 2 mana rocks. If I'm lying around, may as well throw them in this deck as a fun, you know, fun way to advance the board state a little bit. Soul Ring is already covered. Palladium Mirror can either attack or add 2. Pretty good. Commander's Sphere, probably want to take out, but, you know, does draw you a card. pretty good for now. Maybe it'll be swapped out for something later. Victory chimes can be a political tool to help other people cast things that you can later goad, or just make promises so they have to attack your opponents if they want that 1 mana. Have had some great outcomes of this if you're really a political mastermind here. Old Dark Ritual, which is of course an interrupt, no, an instant now, that just adds 3. Love that. I think Ice Age art and border there is just, there's something about that that's so off-putting, and I got an old copy when I traded for someone with some roughed up borders, which, I don't know, the roughed up borders just give it character to me. I really like that. Solemn, of course, sad robot. We gotta get Marvin in here for the Hitchhiker's Guide reference. Neheb discards cards to draw cards and gain mana. That's pretty much everything we want to be doing in this deck. 5/4 with trample for 4. Not my favorite Neheb, but of course, you'll see my actual Neheb deck a bit later. And then we got Grim Hireling, as I showed you all when I dropped Neheb 2 seconds ago, which makes treasures whenever our small little dudes attacked, like our Plague Beetles. And then also we can kill some things if we really need to. But we can kind of hold that as a threat over players as well, kind of blackmailing them into doing our bidding. All right, we just got one more section before we get into the kind of a conclusion and breakdown of this deck, and that is the mana base. We got 9 swamps and 9 mountains here. We got, of course, gotta have in the Karazikar deck the D&D module Evolving Wilds, Terramorphic Expanse, Urborg as a combo for that Plague Beetle, making them unblockable. Just think that's very funny. Had an Urborg and 1 copy. I thought I would throw it in this deck because, hey, it's pretty funny. Klazul's Fury can sometimes just finish someone off. These MDFCs, you should run them in war decks. They're pretty good. And then we got a bunch of dual lands, not dual lands, but tap of 2 lands. I wish I had dual land here. Foreboding Ruins, Tainted Peak, Floatable Caves, Smoldering Marsh, Exotic Orchard, and Command Tower, Guildgate, Silver's Mire, Shadowblood Ridge, Cinder Barrens, Rakdos Carnarium, and then finally let's finish off with a Rogue's Passage, which can help synergize with Karazikar, but also getting that last point of damage. 5 damage from Karazikar with an unblockable is pretty good. Radiant Fountain as a way to gain some life. And the newest addition to the deck is a Hive of the Eye Tyrant, which, of course, Karazikar is the Eye Tyrant. We gotta have his Hive here. And yeah, this is truly an adventure for characters level 17 to 20. Pretty crazy threat here. Love that DiCiso, the art, of course, from the Spiderwick Chronicles, and all of that. But absolutely lovely, and really gets to my love of D&D. But with that out of the way, let's get to the wrap-up and see why I really love playing this deck. So why do I like playing this deck? Well, it comes down to 2 things, really. The first is my love of politics. I love any political board game and such. I love playing Dune and manipulating your friends, or pretty much anything where you can lie and deceive to get your way. Any hidden role games like Werewolf and such. And that's kind of what we got going on here. It turns Magic into this strange game where you gotta, tell your friend, oh, attack them. You can gain some cards, it'll help you out. And, oh yeah, I'm the nice guy, I'll help you out. And you kind of turn into this evil mastermind, just like Karazikar is. And the second is, I felt mixed feelings about the D&D set, but ultimately, I love Beholders, and I couldn't not build a Beholder deck. I do love Magic, and I love the lore, and I really want Magic to stay Magic. But I think there's nothing wrong with building 1 or 2 of the D&D legends as an ode and a tribute. And, if someone doesn't want to play against it just because it is from D&D, I totally understand. I haven't really run into that many people who say that, but of course, if you're one of those people, I totally respect your opinion. And, Magic is Magic, and at the end of the day, maybe it should be Magic. But it's also fun to have a Vorpal sword in a deck, and reference the time that your friend cut off the head of Mephistopheles with a Vorpal sword. And sometimes it's just fun to recount some stories and have a funny Beholder who's looking directly at you shooting all those laser beams and having a fun time. And really, that's what Magic is all about. Just, having fun, having a weird deck brew that's half Goad and half Drain and half drawing cards. It's this weird Nekusar variant, and just a lot of manipulation and a lot of fun. But before I sound too evil here, manipulating all my friends, be sure to check out the deck list below. A link to Moxfield will be there for this deck and some of my other decks. Check out the channel. We got tons of stuff. We got more deck techs coming your way. We got some music videos from my sister, and we got some video essays from me and everyone else coming up down the pipeline. We got a ton of content planned for you all, really just getting started here on Fasciano Productions, and we're glad to have you along for the ride. Be sure to like and subscribe to see more of our content, and check out some videos below, lest you suffer the beholder's wrath. That was pretty cheesy. You get it? It's like a D&D thing, because I'm the DM, and like, oh man, the beholder's coming to kill you. Pretty crazy. Filming some B-roll that we can use at the end of the video, and then I'll have a little subscribe button over there, and people can press it to subscribe as they watch me shuffle. Pretty cool.